Hey y'all, I'm John and welcome back. And have you ever heard a phrase like, the rich are different? Well, I think we all probably have. I don't completely agree with it, but I think a more fair way to say is that the rich think about money differently. The rich think different than us. And today I want to talk about that a little bit because I found several areas where I think the rich really look at money different than the middle class and the lower classes. And I want to talk about it. So why don't you grab your coffee and buckle in a little bit. Let's talk about this. So number one is I want to kind of identify rich here. We all know the stories of the billionaires, the seagoing yachts, I'm going to hop on my private plane and fly to Paris so I can have breakfast there in the morning. I'm not talking about that level of rich, although they are part of the discussion because how many times do you see one generation make it big and the next generation or two generations later have completely squandered that wealth? And I'm not talking about the high income earners who really aren't wealthy, right? You can have your bankers, your lawyers, your entrepreneurs. There are subdivisions filled with beautiful houses, with beautiful cars, vacation houses, and these people are just broke at a really high level. What I'm talking about is the families that treat money differently, not as a renewable resource, but as something to cherish and protect and set up a legacy from it. And I know the picture I have in my mind is the old family with wealth. They live in a nice house, but they've lived there for a long time. Their child goes away, he goes to Harvard Law. And maybe he has a lot of privilege in terms of getting there. But he gets out, he gets his own good job, and he begins to build on the legacy. He's not living off the parents and squandering their wealth, but he's building his own. This is what I'm talking about here. Those families, the wealthy, think differently than the rest of us. Yes, that gives them some advantages, but you can think this way too. So I identified over here on my cheat sheet a few different things on my mind. And the first is the rich value money. Now what plays into this is they also value education. But if you talk to or you read any studies about the middle class and the poor, we use different language to talk about money. Money is the root of evil. The money is the root of all evil. The wealthy are greedy. Things like that. They're putting a moral component on the wealth to justify for themselves why they don't have it and why they don't really want it. You also hear a lot more frequently recently about education. College doesn't matter. Look at all the people who got ahead even though they didn't go to college. College didn't teach me anything. Or the one I hate is I've never used algebra. Whatever. But think about that. How many wealthy families send their kids, their children, to private schools? Now, it's not everyone. I mean, you will see a lot of politicians, very, very wealthy, come from wealthy families. Their kids went through public education. That's not necessary. There's great public education out there, but I see over and over again the wealthy, distinguished names in communities that are generational. They send them to, every child in our family for 3 generations has gone to this school. And then they value higher education. They value that child going on and getting a career of their own, whether it's in business or whether it's law or medicine or engineering and architecture, whatever it happens to be, they value that education. And I'm going to go back to the example I gave just a minute ago. You've got that child, goes to Harvard, gets a law degree. In addition to an admittedly excellent education in preparation to practice law, think about the connections they made while they were there of other like-minded people. It's going to benefit them in years or decades to come in the business world. That's a big part of what the wealthy do, is they build connections. So think about yourself. how you think about money, how you speak out loud about money, and to a lesser extent, education. Do you value it, or are you so frustrated with not having any, you badmouth it? You know, my channel here is all about saving, budgeting, investing, building a life of abundance, and yes, building that legacy. And it starts with being aware of your own thoughts and how you speak about it. Number 2 is they talk about money. Now this is a tricky one. Got to adjust. This is a tricky one because people don't like to talk about money. We're taught that our whole lives. You know, you can go online, pull up Google and be like, how much did The Rock make, last year? What's The Rock worth? Stuff like that. We're all fascinated with it. But we're taught at a young age, don't talk about money. You probably don't know what your parents make, their salary, their income every year. It's kind of a taboo subject in our culture and among families. Certainly you don't want to be like, oh, well, we make more than our neighbors, right? But the rich talk about money, and it goes back to the valuing money. They talk about it not from the negative connotation. Oh, we can't afford that. They talk about it from that term of respect. This is the money. How are we going to use it to benefit ourselves and others? How are we going to invest it? How are we going to, admittedly, cherish it? If you're selling a property and you're getting money, income, capital gains from it, are you going to roll it somewhere else instead of squandering it on a new car? The families talk about it. To the point, I've heard families have budgeting meetings. And part of that is the parents teaching the children to fend for themselves in a lot of ways. They might have an allowance, but I have found a pretty big difference between the high income earners that have really spoiled children. They drive super nice cars themselves. They're full of themselves. They feel like the money is never going to end because daddy or mommy is paying for it all. But then you will meet families who are surprisingly wealthy, and you'd never know it because the kids, maybe they mow grass in their neighborhood, maybe they get a job at a fast food restaurant, maybe they work, at the mall, whatever it happens to be. Maybe they drive a car, maybe, parents bought them a car, but it's not a brand new BMW. They're taught to value money and how hard it is to get and how easy it is to spend. So they don't ignore the subject, they don't push it over there, badmouth it. They talk about it. And especially amongst themselves, it's one of the things my wife and I have gotten pretty good at is talking about the money, about expenditures, not just the stress and budgeting and how much we're spending, but what are our goals? What debt do we have? Can we pay this off? Can we roll these funds into a different? And we've gotten to ourselves to, except for our house and one car payment, we've gotten ourselves to pretty close to debt-free at this point because we talk about it and we're on the same page, pulling in the same direction because we talk about it. So put that in your mind, another mental change you've got to have in how you respect money and wealth. Number 3 is advice on experts. I'd like to say that the most expensive advice you can get is the one you don't pay for. Now, we all like to save a buck, right? But tax and financial education is specialized and it's extremely complex. I, several years ago, moved to using a tax advisor or tax preparer to do my taxes. Has saved me thousands of dollars, multiple times over what I have to pay him every year because he knows the tax code. And I see this all the time of people who maybe they have that investment property, they want to sell it, they buy a new one. There's at least 3 people plus their spouse involved. One is their real estate agent, one is an attorney, and one is a tax advisor to let them know the ramifications of what they're doing and how to maximize their position. They could go online, they could go to Google, they could go to H&R Block, they could do whatever they wanted to, do their own research. But It's better to hire an expert who's in that field every day. They know the changes, they know the intricacies, and what you can do legally to keep the most of your income, of your assets. Pay for experts. The rich pay for experts to advise them instead of going at it alone and trying to get their own PhD every time a new issue comes up. They pick up the phone and they ask a question. Best advice you're ever going to get is that advice you pay for from an expert in a field. It can save you thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So value those other professionals out there. Start to build your own little network of advisors around you. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says that all the time. He doesn't want to be the smartest person in the room. He wants to be surrounded with individual experts in their field. This is the way the wealthy think. Number 4, the business of money. And this kind of ties in with, Anthony Robbins calls it the game of money. It ties everything together, that you and your family are your own business. Whether you're an entrepreneur who truly owns his own business, or whether you are a salaried professional, whether you're an hourly worker, you have an income unit. Money is coming in, money has to go out, and how you treat it in the middle is your business. Do you hire experts to help you manage that, your outgoes, and find ways that are tax advantaged? Talk about using 401ks and Roth IRAs on this channel, tax advantaged ways to save for retirement and help you now or help you later. Do you talk with each other about your incomes and your outgoes and what you're spending money on? Do you budget for vacations? Do you set aside money for the next car? Hopefully you can pay cash for it, but maybe you have a bigger down payment. Are you treating your little family unit, whether it's individual or not, as a business where at least monthly you sit down and say, here's how much I brought in, and here's how much I spent, and here's how much went into retirement? Go to an online calculator. I do it a lot on this channel. How much is that going to be worth in 40 years? Do you treat it like a business? Because the wealthy do. They look at it as a business, not as something that's just over there and you don't want to actually deal with it. Whether it's car insurance, home insurance, education, vacations, again, future cars, dreams, retirement plans, whatever it is, treat it like a business. And the final thing I'll say on all this is, it's a powerful quote, and I wish I could remember where I heard it from, but I heard it many, many years ago. And there was a study done that they looked at rich and middle class and poor, and over a long period of time tracked them and saw where they ended up. And the thought was that they would find that IQ was the final determiner of whether someone ended up wealthier. And that's not the case at all. What it actually is time perspective. The poor tend to think right this second, what am I having today? What am I eating today? What can I afford today? The middle class have a slightly longer time perspective. They might be thinking in the terms of months, maybe a few years, like, oh, I'm going to replace my car next year. But the people who are wealthy look at it on a longer time perspective. They know that putting $200 into an investment this month is not a big deal, but in 40 years, it's potentially worth millions. The number of wealthy who, when their child is born, immediately start an education savings account, start a fund for their college. They are paving the way for future generations. They're treating it like a business and they're investing in it. Your family, your wealth, and your legacy is your business. So watch this through again, guys. And if you like it, please give me a thumbs up on it. Please subscribe to the channel. But how do you talk about money? How do you think about money? Do you partner with your partner? Do you treat it like a business? Are you investing in yourself and valuing your education to know your worth and build something for the future. I'd love to know your thoughts below. Leave me a positive comment. I sure appreciate it, guys. Thanks.